Star Wars Light of the Jedi kicks off a new era of Star Wars stories set 200 years before the events of Episode 1 during the High Republic. So let's talk about it. After a great disaster puts billions of lives and hyperspace itself in danger, the Jedi investigate what happened and discover a new enemy. While I've read several of the Disney-era Star Wars books, I haven't been the biggest fan of them, mostly because they don't feel like they tell big enough stories. It seems like they're meant to fill in details and backstories about characters in the TV shows and movies, so I've had some enjoyment with them, but they've never been those big events that I've wanted them to be. So I was very interested when they announced they were doing the High Republic going 200 years before the events of Phantom Menace, because it meant that they could tell big stories. So naturally, I've been very excited to check out this book ever since it was announced almost a year ago. But real quick, before we get started with this, you can check out Light of the Jedi for free if you sign up for a free trial of Audible. If you sign up for a free trial, they'll give you a credit for one book, and you can use it to get Light of the Jedi or any other Star Wars book or any other book in the Audible store for free. The link is down below in the description. It does help out my channel if you do use my link, and you can get a free audiobook, so why wouldn't you want to do that? With that said, let's get started with the good. And probably the best thing about this book is that it delivers on the promise of the premise, which is we get to see the world of Star Wars and the Jedi from a different perspective. In the prequel trilogy, we saw the fall of the Jedi, and then in the original and onward, we see a Jedi emerge to try and bring them back. But here in this book, we're seeing them in their prime while things were good. And that's pretty cool. The government is functioning. They're trying to be able to meet the needs of all the people. The Jedi are serving their proper purpose. They're not warriors battling the Clone Wars or trying to lead a rebellion to topple the government. They're protectors of the peace, and you see them in a state where they're supposed to be, and their personalities, different perspectives kind of emerge a little bit more because of that. Likewise, we have a very different kind of villain in this story. It's not Jedi versus Sith, and it's not tyrannical government and rebellion. You have this group of kind of space Vikings, as I've heard other people describe them, trying to break up the order that's being established in the universe. And so it has a different dynamic from what we've seen in Star Wars traditionally. The story is essentially broken up into three different parts. The first one is the disaster itself, which is pretty cool because it plays out like a disaster movie set in the world of Star Wars, with the Jedi swooping in as the heroes trying to save the day. It's just something different to see from the world of Star Wars, and in particular, the Jedi not as warriors, but once again, just trying to save lives. And I appreciated that, especially the way it's broken down. The chapters are based off how much time until the impact, and so it kind of creates this urgency inside the story. Second part is an investigation into what happened, and we start to learn about the villains inside the story, how the government works with the Jedi, and even see the perspective of some of the people in the universe. And then the final section is kind of putting the war back into Star Wars, and you get the more traditional Star Wars elements there. So prior to the launch of this book and the High Republic series in general, I'd heard some people complain that this is the most boring era of Star Wars, and people frustrated that they chose to go in this direction. But this book kind of shows what makes this era interesting and what they would be vulnerable to in this context, which is when things are going good, when there aren't big, gigantic threats, you let your guard down and you let your defenses down. And that's kind of interwoven into this story as to why something could happen that would cause the great disaster that they wouldn't necessarily be prepared for, and why someone evil could emerge at this time, because the book shows the perspective of so many different characters in the government and the Jedi, the new villains, the people. You see where this government that's going really well could start to crumble a little bit and where the cracks can start to show, even though they're working so hard to have this utopian government. One of the issues I frequently have with prequels is that they answer questions I wasn't asking with answers that I don't find satisfying, and the mystery of what happened is a lot more intriguing than the answers that they provide. And I feel like this being set 200 years before Phantom Menace is actually answering some questions that I was wondering about. What were the Jedi like in their prime when they were really unified and not on the decline? What were the things that started to happen that cracked the unity that they had? Likewise, whereas bad prequels make the universe feel smaller, this is able to make it seem bigger by telling such a grand story. There are references to planets that we know and characters that we've heard of and spent time with before, but they're subtle. That's not the focus. It's on the grander implications for the universe, and what happens with this great disaster is huge for the world of Star Wars, and in subtle ways sets in motion probably what's going to lead to the events of the prequel trilogy, which leads into the events of the original trilogy. In a lot of ways, it's a book all about how the light of the Jedi provides hope for the universe. And at the same time, there's always these little hints that it's not going to last. And the final positive I can say about this one is that it set up a series of small mysteries that actually have me intrigued, especially in regards to the main villain, his goal, where all of this is headed. I want to know what's going to happen next, while this still felt like a complete story in and of itself. From there, let's move on to the bad. The big issue that I had with the story is that it feels like a setup book. They're showing us the event that sets in motion all of these stories set in the High Republic, so they have to introduce us to the event, the Jedi, the government, the villains, these people. And so you don't go particularly deep with any one character. It's very much a plot-driven story. It's very much a introduction-based story. It's not about a specific character arc for someone on a journey. And in the world of Star Wars, part of what makes it so compelling are these big character arcs that we've taken characters on, whether it's Luke Skywalker becoming the hero of the universe or Anakin Skywalker going from hero to its worst villain. That's what makes it so compelling. That's not the type of story that's going on here. You meet a lot of people, you learn a lot of things about the nature of this universe right now, but you don't go particularly deep with any of them. Because the story's trying to introduce so many different people, I found it a little bit difficult to follow at times. I listened to the audiobook version of it, and I wish as I'd been listening, I would have paused to check out some of the resources that Star Wars has put out with kind of character arc and character description, so I could track along a little bit better with which characters are who and on which planets and everything like that. And if you listen to the audiobook, which you can do for free if you use my link down below in the description, I would recommend you do the same and check out the resources so you can follow along just a little bit better. Because of all of this, the middle section, the investigation, was my least favorite part of the book. The beginning, very compelling, draws you into this disaster and something different from Star Wars. And then the big finale has some nice reveals. There's stakes, there's consequences, classic Star Wars battle. So nice stuff in there. The middle section, I wasn't as kind of drawn in as much. So for me personally, while I thoroughly enjoyed going to this different era of Star Wars and seeing a different type of story, I would have preferred that it focused in on fewer characters with more depth than going so broad with the number of characters covered. Real quick before I give you my final recommendation, be sure to join me down below in the comments section. Are you planning on checking out some of the books in the High Republic? Let me know down below in the comment section. Also, remember you can get a copy of this book for free for signing up for a free trial of Audible at audibletrial.com/Sean Chandler. Any free audiobook of your choice if you do it. If you're a Star Wars fan, I do recommend that you check out this book to see the world of Star Wars and the Jedi in a new time, in a new place, and from a different perspective. But don't expect to find a deep character study or a hero's journey. It is very much a set-up book that establishes this era, the new threats, and what the Jedi were like at this time. Which it is very nice to see that. If you like this book review, I have done some book reviews before. You can check them out in that playlist right over there, including several Star Wars book reviews. Thank you so much for watching, and keep talking movies and books and Star Wars too much.